Hello, hello. G'day, g'day. Welcome to another session in the Inner Sanctum online sessions. And today we have a very special guest teacher, Don Hudnall. Welcome, Don. So great to be with you.
Hey, so great to be here, Karin. Thanks for having me back after you accentuate the positive. So it's always great to have a conversation with you. Thank you.
Well, Don was on the show. How long ago? A year ago? How long ago?
Well, almost a year, 9-10 months.
Right. Yeah. Sharing some of your experiences. And we were just chatting before we went live about you and your experiences. Hang on, something's happening. Music's playing in the background. And there we go. And you've had so many amazing experiences, but I'm sure not everybody who's going to be watching this, watching the recording or watching the live, will have who on Zoom. So Mohammed said that he saw who's seen Don's conversation with me? Nobody else. Just Vladi has, yeah, and Mohammed. But you are just amazing, Don. You're one of the most amazing people I've ever spoken to. You're so humble.
Mostly confused.
You're so humble about it. And unlike many of the teachers that I speak to, I had that beautiful man, Thomas Anderson, on the Cosmic Conversations the other day. You've got nothing to sell. You're not selling anybody anything. You're just sharing your experience. Mind you, you do have a book. Let me tell people a little bit about you. What have we got in your bio here? Don Hudnall has had many psychic and spiritual experiences since he was a child. A scientist by trade with a degree in toxicology, Don started his professional career by investigating uncontrolled hazard waste sites for the US government Environmental Protection Agency, followed by a job in the Environment, Health and Safety Department at Bell Helicopter Textron. Spiritual in nature, Don has memories from before he was born about coming to this world and as a walk-in experience during puberty. His psychic abilities from birth made him feel crazy and alone in the dark until the third quarter, about 2019, when voices in his head or intuition forced him to begin sharing his experiences on video, which you do. I think you've got a YouTube channel now. You started on BitChute, but you're sharing on YouTube too, right, Don?
That's correct. That's correct.
Both. And where are we? Leading him to discover that he's not alone with his experiences and knowing. I think it was you discovered Sheila's walk-in conference when you started seeing that other people had crazy things going on in their life too, wasn't it?
Right. The first group I kind of found was Steve Noble. He was the first one I had heard about online. And then somebody in chat somewhere said, there's a walk-in meeting coming up. You should attend. I'm like, what is that? And it was Sheila's very first walk-in conference. And that's why I got introduced to everyone.
Yeah.
First time I heard that word.
Yeah, exactly. I know, because I get this conversation so often with people. I think I had it even with you, Mohammed. It's like I said, are there people around you that know what you know, talk about what you talk about? And a lot of people say no, but there are just millions and millions and millions of us, and we can come together online and then eventually find each other in person. But the internet gives us the ability to find each other, right? So who was I talking to? Stephanie. That's right. When I put the show out with Stephanie, and she said, someone contacted me from YouTube that watched your show, and she lives down the road from me. And I'm like, cool. But I would love to maybe start before you came to this, because you have memories of pre-birth. Let's go into that. Where are you? You're looking. Have we lost you?
I'm still here. I hope my signal is okay. Can you hear me? I was freezing there for a minute.
Oh, okay. You dropped out a bit, did you? Yep. Okay.
Yeah, I'm still here though.
You're still. Well, we can hear you, but you are frozen on my end.
Okay, Karen, you froze for me for a second.
Oh, okay.
But I think we're back.
We are back. So what do you remember before coming to this planet? Your pre-birth memories. What do you remember?
I remember being in a group of people, a group of beings, almost like sitting at desk almost. But I had no identity of self, none at all. And we were reaching into this holographic matrix in front of us, actually reaching into this world here. And it's like touching people, making small suggestions to people, but they influencing people, but it had to be small, because every time you touch someone, we touch someone, it would make a ripple around them, which touched someone else's life. And if it influenced that person too much, that person would have a ripple causing another effect. We had to keep it small enough. It could only touch about 3 people out from the main source. And that's all we did. But there was no identity of self at all. And for some reason, my changing started getting bigger, and I started getting this impression of self, started having almost not emotions, but like, what am I doing? What is I kind of thing, a self identity. And my changes got bigger and bigger and more dramatic. And eventually this teacher or overseer or guide or person up front, being up front, shut my station down completely and telepathically told me to leave this area, go down the hallway, past these 2 guards, which turned and smiled at me and freaked me out. And then into another room where the only way I could visualize it is like a book. It's like pages with golden glowing symbols or letters on it. And when you looked at one of them, you looked into the history of Earth. Each symbol, you would get pulled into it, and you would see immense amounts of time just in one symbol of Earth. And once you turn one page onto the other one, it's not like this page says this and this page says this. You can read them both, but when they overlap, the pages are transparent and the symbols change. So it's multi-depth layers of symbols. And you start realizing that it's a lot of consciousness on Earth. And so the further I got to our current time, from dinosaurs and way back when, it took more characters, more symbols to describe all the people and consciousness that's happening. So instead of a symbol meaning 1,000,000 years or something at the beginning, each symbol started taking on a shorter period of time because there was so much consciousness and things happening. And eventually I was looking through, and this other being there was like, to make a choice, which being am I going to go into? And I just did not understand. And I finally was focused on one person's life long enough that I got pulled into this and into my mother's womb and became me. It was my own life I was looking at that I'm living now. And I just got pulled into it. So that's kind of a quick summary.
Whoa.
And I do, and this was when we were living in a haunted house. I know that people talk about a veil of forgetting, but I was actually forcing myself to remember somewhere between 2 and 4 years old, a long time ago. But I specifically remember one hard memory walking down the street. It's like, I am starting to forget all of this. And I forced myself to take every little step, sequence by sequence, everything I remember, and every single day force myself to remember. And I have forgotten so much. I know there's another huge piece past what I can remember. I know it's there, and I'm almost trying to remember it, but I can't. But that's about as far as I can get.
Wow. As you're describing this, Don, where am I at Spotlight? I'm feeling like, because I think, this is how reality works. It's like this time-space reality matrix, multidimensional universe, parallel lives, they're all happening simultaneously. They're all playing out. And then from spirit or broader perspective, we have the opportunity to view it and then choose, like the role we want to play. That's what you're saying, right? But it's all already happening. And
and the whole thing's already happened, but you can influence reality and make changes in it. But there is stuff laid out that's, for me anyway, it seems like a lot of stuff is already laid out. The funny thing about that, and Shirley asked, was that my walk-in experience? And no, that wasn't my walk-in experience. That happened in puberty. But for this, this part, that book I mentioned with the letters, that was only a fraction of pages in this big, thick thing. There was a whole section that was blank. And then after that, it was like human beings, but they were glowing light bodies. They were glowing, a goldish gold glowing color. And it was like perfection. But I don't know how to get from here to there. There's a blank section in the middle. How do you get from where we are now, this 3D world, to this, what we're supposed to be?
Right.
So I can't answer that yet.
Well, I guess that's what we're all exploring right now, right? We're coming into density, and then the journey is back to the glowing light body, and that's called life. Like, how do we get there? And maybe we do lifetime after lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. Didn't manage it. Didn't manage. Let
And
me
maybe that's
try
that whole
again.
part about that blank section is
Yeah.
up to each individual. How do you get there in your own path?
Yeah. So when you talked about, from that broader perspective, influencing those lives on earth, but you couldn't influence it too much because, we've got free will and we've got to make our choices. But if you do influence, it ripples out. As I was listening to the conversation that we had on ATP this morning, I was going over it. The thought occurred to me. It's occurred to me a few times with you and other people like Kevin Briggs and other amazing galactic consciousness beings that are on this planet, Garnet Schulhauser, that sometimes there is that influence that overrides the sort of free will, law of attraction rules that are here on Earth, that kind of overrides it because you come in with a specific intention or mission or, desire or whatever it is. And there's this overriding influence happening from that higher realm that has that. Do you want to explain that further? Like, have you felt that in your life where you're taken on this journey and sort of regardless of what you want or feel? Or
No, I think it's personally, I think it is a lot up to the individual on how you want to get there and the path you want to take. For me, having these memories, even as a young child, forcing myself to remember, it was almost like I can't be like everybody else. But when you talk about another influence from somewhere else guiding us and things like that, I hope I'm not getting off track to your question, Karin, am I?
No, good.
Okay,
Good.
but this outside influence, because I can get off track easy. This outside influence, I actually put that in one of my earlier videos before I heard about any of this, while I still thought I was alone. It's like, sometimes it's like I'm talking to myself, like a higher version of myself. And I actually put that in the video without knowing about anything, because that's what it's like. Sometimes when you want to talk to a higher source, I know there's something out there, and sometimes it feels like I'm talking to another version of myself. And so sometimes, instead of just talking to yourself in the room, like we all do sometimes, just talk to yourself in the car driving. Sometimes it's talking to your higher self. And I remember doing that. And I actually put that in videos, like that's what it feels like. Asking for some of these things to happen in my life is talking to myself sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mainly because of that memory of me reaching down into this world.
Right.
It's almost like I'm reaching back to that person in the desk, kind of.
Some people have called that God. Some people have called that higher self. Some people have called that soul, spirit. We've given that other broader aspect of ourselves so many names. But yeah, I often, when I'm listening to people talk about how they meet God in their NDE, that golden light body that you were talking about, I reckon they're meeting their higher self, but they don't have any concept of that they're connected to that. So they call it God, as like this thing that's outside themselves, that this all-knowing divine being. But it's really them. It's really us. It's all us.
Yeah. And I really don't use the God word a lot because it seems too limiting. My little human brain can't comprehend something that big. My brain just won't handle it. I don't know that anybody's human brain could handle something like that. So I just did my best.
Do you want to talk about your walk-in experience, what you experienced, like leading up to it and what happened?
Leading up to it, I've had a lot of experiences, telepathic and empathic, kind of born with that, and it stayed with me all my life, and I didn't know how to deal with it. You can't explain it to people without being ridiculed, other things that were happening. And I won't go into too much of that teenage angst and everything else that happened, but there were several things that happened that led up to this walk-in experience. The final draw of it was I couldn't talk to anyone. No one will listen, not family, friends, parents, no one. And my last choice was go to the church, which parents take their kids to church and all that. And it does help a lot of people. But the preacher ended up in our conversation telling me that I was the thing wrong with the world. And that was negative, really, at that point in my life, was bad. and I had nowhere else to turn to. I tried running away from home. My parents caught me out the front door, and they were generous and kind about like, where are you going to go? But in my negative state, it was, where are you going to go? Almost like, you go anywhere, everybody's going to hate you. You know, it's that whole negative cycle, caught in it. And so I couldn't do anything. This world didn't want me. I'm wrong. I have these memories from before I was born. This telepathic and empathic, nobody else around me can hear me scream in their heads when things are happening. Something's not right. I even talked to my mother, said, something's not right with me. I'm hearing all these people in my head and these empathic emotions. Maybe I should see a psychiatrist or a psychologist. And she says, you will never do that. Never, ever do that. The funny thing is, she still says that to this day, and I'm not sure exactly why. So I have a question there still. But anyway, there was nowhere for me to go. So for the walk-in experience, what I did is I went back to my bedroom, laid down in my bed, looked up. I didn't know how to astral travel. I learned how to astral travel on my own and had been doing it. So I laid down on my bed and I said these words out loud to the universe, whatever's out there. I said, I'm done. I am done here. I won't be a mistake here anymore. I don't belong here. I'm leaving. I am done. And I astral traveled out, and I didn't know where I was going to go. It's like, if I'm a great limbo, that's better than here. It was really bad. So it's like, I don't care where I go. I'm not staying here. Went out of my body. And then it was like something else came in and just pulled myself back in. And it was like water is the only way I can describe it. It was crisp and cool and clear and just poured in from all over me, just poured in like an intense, cool, refreshing breath on a fall day. Just beautiful coming in. And when I opened my eyes, everything was different. Everything changed. The first breath I took, it was like I'd never breathed air before. Breathing air was brand new to me. Looking at colors, the colors were very bright. Somewhere deep inside, I knew what colors were, but these were very intense. And I could see life in everything. It was like every object, everything had life in it. Getting up to walk was new. It was like walking through water. When you try to swim in water, that's what it felt like, walking through a substance, because it's air. I had never walked through air before, and it gave some pushback. So it was all brand new. Everything was brand new. Even first time looking in the mirror in the bathroom, I was literally doing this to my face, going, I am in here. What is this? And just looking at my face. I literally was. I really was. And then I noticed that I think my eyes changed colors, because as far back as I can remember, it was all brown eyes, brown hair. But my eyes now have brown in the middle, and then green, and then a ring of blue. So my eyes had changed. Also, the first time I walked out of the house, looked up at the sky with clouds moving, I just saw life in it. So from that point on, they were my friends, and I talked to the clouds and the weather. And that's when things started responding. And briefly, we talked about, before this came on, about macro PK. That was part of it. Macro psychokinesis was talking to the weather, and it started responding. So because everything was alive, and it all became my friend. Talking to trees, talking to rocks, everything's alive. And that's the way I've always seen it since then. And that's the beginning of the walk-in.
I love hearing this experience, Don, because it's like, I guess it's like a soul entering a baby's body that is experiencing air, like this matrix of like moving through air. Not that babies move much, because they're, they don't when they're first born, but just all these physical sensations that we experience when we first, but a baby doesn't know how to articulate that, how to talk about that. By the time they do, they've forgotten about it because they're so used to it. So it's beautiful to hear it like a new baby entering. But at the same time, a new soul, I should say, entering, you were still there. The part of you that was Don was still there. It's like you didn't leave. Do you want to talk more about that?
It must still be there. I've heard about walk-ins doing a total exchange before, total soul exchange, but I think that beginning part of me is still there, because the memories were still there, but I had to search for them. when I saw my mother for the first time, I didn't recognize, I knew what mother was, but I didn't recognize the family connection of mother, that, all that mother is. But I knew she was a relation. So I really had to dig deep to do simple things. And that beginning part must still be here. It has to be. I remember the first time trying to step on the school bus after that. I did not know how to step up onto a school bus steps. I had to stop, and I literally stood there at the door trying to remember how to take a step up onto a step. So the memories were there. I just had to reach for them. Yeah, so I think that beginning part is still here with me. It feels like it is. And the funny thing nowadays, after hearing more and looking back, the memories from before I was born, when I passed those guards in the hallway and they turned and smiled at me, they never do that. And that's what shocked me so bad. And it's like, why did they do that? Is this part of that being that had no identity of self? Is this a beginning, like a very small child coming here for the first time, but for some reason it's merged with this other one? Did they know all that was going to happen? That's beyond my thought process, but I don't know.
Maybe you do know, Don. What do you suspect?
I suspect that they do know, honestly. And things that have happened recently have given confirmation of that. You talk about synchronicities and things like that. These were like guardians to the portal to Earth. And when they turned and smiled at me, only after I've heard about starseeds and walk-ins and more information, all these synchronicities started happening. Events started happening. Songs on the radio started to come on at weird times when I'm feeling like emerald green crystals coming around my body. These weird songs come on the radio. It's talking about protectors of truth and the protector prepares, and then all these weird songs coming in. And then I found a book from J.J. Hurtak called The Book of Knowledge, The Keys of Enoch. And in that book, it lays out a lot of my life. My entire life is laid out in that book. Even as a small child in the bubble bath, I would do this and put it over my forehead, having little bubbles in it, doing this. And it's like I'm looking and seeing other places. And he's got that mentioned in the book, talking about that's the way to gain spiritual information, some spiritual knowledge. And I would do that as a little child in the bathtub. So things he's got written there just mirrors my life. And it's just kind of funny.
Oh, so beautiful. So after you, so it sounds like you enter this world, this matrix, you explore it, you feel it, you acclimate to it. What did that higher aspect, other aspect that walked in? Okay, couple of questions here. I've got so many questions going on. Did it dispel all the angst that you had as a teenager? Did it go like all that negative emotion? I don't want to be here. Nobody understands me. Did that just like disappear?
It was gone instantly.
Instantly.
And when I started making these videos, and I talked about that for the first time, my walk-in experience before I knew what a walk-in was, I said that maybe it was just releasing the fear. Maybe it was just releasing and letting go of all the negativity. But it was something much more than that. It really was something so much more. But all the anxiety, all the angst, everything was gone instantly. And I just had a complete new view of the world. There is a question in chat about, do I remember any galactic races or anything that I came from for the walk-in experience? I have a couple of memories, but as far as a specific galactic race, I don't. I don't know how I would describe it, but I remember at one point flying a ship, and this is going to sound weird, flying a ship with different control panels. One of the things that I would do that I kind of have this weird memory about is going to places that other people normally wouldn't. And there are dark points in space that you can't really travel through. It's like a void space, and coming to a void space. And this was a void space that I came to. And it was like my memory, my consciousness started getting fragmented, started breaking. Getting fragmented. And it was like I left that ship conscious, nobody at all, consciousness, leaving the ship. And what it was like is not a waveform, but just consciousness looking down at Earth, but it's like looking through a hurricane, and it was layers. So it's like, I'm going to come down here through these layers, and it was like keeping a small thread coming down, because every layer I went through, it was removing pieces of me, removing pieces of what I was. This piece is removed, this piece is removed, this, and it's like removing everything, but I needed to keep one thin haired line of connection, but forgetting almost everything, but except for that one thin line, and then coming in. And that's it. I don't know about other races or beings or anything like that, so I can't really go, don't know about all that.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting. You've just described the process, because I often pose the question, how does infinite intelligence, an extension of source energy, infinite creative potential, squeeze itself into a physical human form and forget? Like, how does that happen? Like, how does that happen? And
well,
then you've just,
off, you can do it.
you've just described how that happens. And interesting that Lee, that you've said this one thin cord remained, and often people talk about in near-death experiences or out-of-body experiences, the silver cord. In the Shirley MacLaine books, when she left her body, when she's in a hot bath in Peru, she saw the silver cord connecting her to the earth. I feel like that cord is that same thing that you're talking about, this thin cord that connects us to
I don't
earth.
remember silver, but I remember just having to get it so thin. And I didn't want it to break. It's like, I want some connection still. I don't want it to break. Just keeping it as thin as possible.
Wow. And then all those layers, they're kind of wiping, they're like wiping the, gosh, I don't know.
I wouldn't say wiping. It was like storing. Not wiping, but like storing.
Wow.
Like a piece comes out, but it's still there. And then another layer piece comes out of you and your memories, and it stays there. And then another, and it stays there. And it's like, if I can get back at there, I'll start remembering through the different layers. But I don't think I can do that in this body, a physical body. It's more like a consciousness thing, trying to go through those layers.
Yeah, they say you can.
Maybe, I don't know.
They say you can.
I don't know.
Angela's nodding. Yeah, they say you can. I guess that's the challenge that we're up for, is to access those stored memories in those different layers of dimensional layers of our consciousness. Yeah. This is so fascinating. Thanks for looking at the chat, because I'm so focused on you, I'm not looking at the chat. Okay, so once you acclimated to this world, going back to that question, did you remember like why you came here? Did you have a specific intent or mission, or no?
No, honestly, I hear a lot of people remember their missions as walk-ins and things like this. No, I don't remember a specific mission. The thing that I did want to do, well, actually, the thing that I did want to do was experience what it's like to be human, because I couldn't understand. I couldn't understand humans. I mean, I could see it from a distance out there, but I couldn't understand anything about humans. And the only way to understand is to become one, to live a life and become one. But I want to experience to know what it was like in order to help. I couldn't help. That's all I can get, is I couldn't help unless I knew, unless I understood. But as far as helping, I don't know. I just try to help people in small ways and do what I can. But beyond that, I don't know.
Well, it's interesting, because that email that you sent me about things you wanted to discuss today, I think that we'll kind of go into places we didn't go to on the show. I like looking at your, like even in your bio, looking at what you've been attracted to do with your career. Like you've worked for the Environmental Protection Agency, the government, like you're a scientist. So like that's where you're leaning. So that's a clue to what you're doing here. I don't think there's any coincidence that you've got all these jobs and been who you've been. Do you want to talk about, because you've got here, you know, how manifesting right out of college, like, do you want to talk about what happened, how that happened?
I learned about manifesting in college. Karin, in our previous ATP meeting, I talked about one event in college that was kind of traumatic for me with telepathy, and it caused me to start denying a lot of stuff. Before that, I had met another guy in college that was telepathic like me. His wife even got onto us once for speaking in our heads and not including her. So she got on to both of us for that. But he taught me how to manifest during a strip poker game. So after that, I kind of picked it up. But then there came a point where I started denying a lot of it. And it split my world from a normal world. And then my dark, crazy little world. I still used my dark, crazy little world. I still participated in it and did what I could. But I just had to believe that I was crazy, and I just let it all happen. So when you talk about manifesting, my first job from college, I did send out a lot of resumes, even to Australia, a lot of resumes for jobs everywhere, and got no responses. So it's like, let me try manifesting a job. It's like from my location, 5 hours away is Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas. It's like, it'd be nice to live in a big city, close enough to the parents where I can still visit, be a great job location, and maybe I can try to manifest a job. So I started reaching out to reality, feeling it, getting that thought form in your mind, sending it out. This is going to happen. This job is going to come. And within a day or two, I got a phone call out of the blue from this environmental group that I eventually got hired at. And he called me right out of the blue. I did not send them a resume. And it turned, a lot of synchronicities happened to lead up to him calling to me. They wanted someone with a toxicology background, which I had. They wanted someone from that college that I went to because their previous toxicologist was from there, and he demanded to get someone from this college. So they called admissions. And the thing about admissions is, I had a scholarship for this college, which the high school didn't tell me about, and I lost it because they just wouldn't tell me. They didn't like me or something. But the one admissions person remembered that. And I always kept in touch with her throughout the college and talked to her all the time, just being friendly. So when this gentleman called the college, that admissions lady, she goes, I've got the perfect person for you. Let me give you his phone number. And they called me, and he said, I'm coming through Monroe tomorrow through the airport. I've got a 45-minute layover. You want to meet in the airport? I'm like, yeah, we'll meet in the airport. So I met him in the airport, and he offered me the job right there. And that was it. So no resume, no anything. It just out of the blue phone call came in.
There you go. So it was obviously meant to be in some way, like you working in this. Why do you think you're involved in the sort of work that you're doing?
I think it had something, what I mentioned before about the protect and guardian stuff. The first job with environmental, protecting the earth kind of thing. I think that was part of it. The second big career job was protecting people. It was all about working in environmental health and safety, keeping people safe from radiation, noise, chemicals, asbestos, things like that is what I did mostly. So I think it was a lot about protecting then. Then later, after I moved back here, you see news media and things, and I wanted to learn more about news media. So I actually worked for KTVE and Fox News for a while, for about 3 years, just to see the inside workings. And so I got to see the inside workings of that. So it's a lot of different career things. That I even did pottery, opened my own pottery business and little pottery stuff, different things. So I've had several businesses, but it's all related to experiencing what it's like to be human. These different jobs, sales, corporate jobs, having your own personal business. So just different ways to experience being human, what it's like.
So now that you've looked around a bit and you've been here for a couple of years on Earth, what do you think? What do you think?
I see hope in a lot of people. I see a lot of hope. I think there's a lot of people that don't see it in themselves, but I see it. It's there. I think there's a lot of light in people, but some just don't recognize it, but it's there. One thing that I remember from the beginning memories from before I was born, one of the things that I've always wanted to know when I was here is how to forgiveness. And I had been working on that for a lot of my life. It's not how to forgive one person or two people. How do you forgive everybody for everything? And that's a very difficult thing to do. And I never could do it. On another job that I had was filling vending machines, sitting in the truck. This was probably about 7 years ago, or 5 years ago. I forget how long ago it was. But sitting in the truck, it's like I almost had it. How do you forgive all these people that are in wars and the horrible things that happen throughout human history? How do you forgive all that? And it just slipped. And then I had this big download of information come in, and I started seeing people and getting their emotions in all different situations. And what it was is hope. It's just seeing a little bit of hope in each person, you know, that they can see this for themselves. And seeing myself in each person was the big thing, is seeing each person as myself. And it's like, I can see myself doing that. I don't want to, but I'm human. It's possible. I don't know the life that they've lived fully. I don't know how they got to where they're at, but I hope. I have hope. And I see myself in them and try to forgive myself for whatever they've done, because it is a piece of me.
Oh, Don, just love you. Yeah.
It's hard. That
how do
big
you
forgiveness
forgive?
is hard.
You know, years ago, when I was in my early 30s, doing courses and running the Academy of Light, I did some course. I don't know, people used to invite me to all these different things, check it out, because I was presenting speakers back then, but live in groups. And I met this beautiful man, had a young family, and he said something to me that shocked me at the time. He was beating up on himself because he hadn't reached the level of loving unconditionally everyone in the world like he loved his little baby daughter. And I remember thinking, God, that's a hard task to love everybody as much as you unconditionally love your daughter. But it stuck with me what he said. Like, it stuck with me what it said. It's a bit like what you're saying. It's like reaching that state of feeling love and forgiveness for everyone in the world, with all the stuff that we experience that goes on this planet. You know, how do you do that?
Yeah, it's almost a different type of love, a different kind of love, for me anyway. Because there's a human kind of love that's kind of passionate sometimes, or really an emotional bond with something. For this kind of love, it's like a love for humanity and all the possibilities, and they can become so much more. We can become so much more than this. It's a different kind of love for everyone. So that's the way I feel it.
Yeah, exactly. It's moving out of human love back to source love, remembering that we are this unconditional love. And I think that as humans, you've nailed it, Don. The way to get there is to understand the unity of all things, is to see yourself in the other, is to see yourself in the other, in the criminal, in the pedophile, in the murderer. And there is an aspect, you know, there are times when maybe you felt like killing somebody. It's like rage, you know, like we've all experienced those emotions.
But see, that's dangerous too. I mean, for weird people like me, having those negative thought forms, they can go out and interact and do really bad things. And I've had that happen. And you have to accept responsibility, feel guilty over it, whatever's happened. So it's really about controlling your thoughts sometimes about this. I see Andrea had a question in chat.
Yeah, thank you.
Asking about the symbols from before I remember, and about light language. After the walk-in, I did start speaking a weird language, and especially when I'm gardening, talking to the plants, because I see everything is alive. I would talk to the plants in a weird language. I kept that up just for a few years because it was too weird for people. I couldn't do it around people. It was just too odd. So I started writing. That was my big thing. I would have pages and pages and pages of this light language. The weird thing that I realized just last year, a couple of years ago, when I got this book, the Book of Knowledge, the Keys of Enoch, I did a quick video on light language, and I wrote a card out and just showed it, said, this is what it looks like. One of the symbols I used, he has in the book as a light language symbol, meaning the divine breath acting upon amino acids to change the genetic code. Part of my light language always includes a DNA chain with lines coming out and weird symbols. It's like things being changed. It's almost like little formulas. And it's really weird, but I'll have pages and pages of it. I have no idea what it means. Oh, except for the other day, one of my symbols is always a circle with a dot in the middle. And somebody else said that's a symbol for Ra. I don't know. But it turns out some of the symbols that I use mean other things, which I have no idea.
Do you have access to your mob, your team, your guidance? Can you, you know, like, because the human mind says, what the hell's going on? I have no idea. That's the human mind, right? Which is a beautiful part of what it is to be human. But then there's that part of you when you ask, it is given. Do you, you know, you get the answers?
I don't really ask like that. I know that there's a force out there influencing me and giving me signs and symbols and synchronicities. All this does happen. I mean, it is happening, but I don't go out and ask. I live kind of in the moment, what happens, and I experience it. And that's what I do, is try to experience this life. So I let it happen and go with it. And it's like moving, it's like flowing in a river. So you just go with it. And that's what I do. I just swim with the current. I don't fight against it. So I don't ask and try to change anything. I just go with what's happening. So I experience stuff.
Yeah, I ask all the time. I'm forever asking questions to like, hang on.
I get impressions because sometimes I do see future events that happen.
Mm.
And I've been able to talk to people. It's like, don't do this. There'll be a wreck if you do this. With that friend with telepathy in college, I told him about a wreck he was going to have, and he was able to avoid it. But sometimes when I see things like that I might could change, I get this strong impression of no, just no.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, okay, what, even if it's a bad thing, it's like, I can't interfere with this one. I don't know why. I'm not asking the question, but I'm trusting. And it's like, okay. Okay.
That's so interesting. I want to tell you a story, but I want to go back to the circle with the dot, the bullseye symbol. Because as soon as you said that, I thought about Mary Edwards, who I had on the show a couple of weeks ago, who has an amazing experience. And she said she was painting on rocks, and she was painting these bullseye symbols. And then her galactic guide said that they represented ships. They represented craft, you know, because they're circular and they sort of have concentric circles. And she, as a kid, she was painting all these rocks with these bullseye symbols. And but going back to knowing that you can change something, that's so interesting. I think that at most humans, when they see something contrasting, something they don't like, something broken, something out of balance, they just observe it and go, oh, that's terrible, and judge it. Oh, terrible, terrible, terrible. But they don't tune in to like, oh, let me fix that. I can change that. Oh, energy pattern. I can rearrange the energy pattern. So you have this innate knowing that you've got this ability to change things.
And I do it at the weirdest times, like in everyday situations. I mentioned, but I don't know if I mentioned to you last time, but telepathy, driving down the roads, you're able to feel if a car is going to pull in and you can get out of the way, or you can feel if someone's going to turn in front of you. So some of the weird times that I do influence little things is sitting at a traffic light. And if I see a car might be pulling out in front of someone else, I try to throw something in their mind of, watch out, there's a car coming, pay attention. I do that all the time with other people around me. It's like, or someone stepping in a grocery store out into a parking lot is, watch out, there's this car about to pull out, or do this. And I try to throw something their way that maybe they'll pick up on it. I don't know, but anything I can do to help, even in little ways like that, I try to do it. So it doesn't harm anyone trying to help like that, I don't think so.
But there are times where you can see patterns and you can you know you can change it, and then you're given no, like, stop, no, like, this has got to play out, this scenario has to play out. You know, you're like, not to interfere.
Yeah, even one of the hardest choices I had to make was when the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigations here in the United States, went after my father. For the trial, I could see a path where I could have stopped it before it ever went to trial. He would drop the case. I could have intervened and stopped it. But if I did that, there was this other branch where my sister would have died. And it was like a choice to make. So I didn't do anything. I didn't interfere and just let it happen. Everything worked out. I mean, Dad won with no money against the FBI. It was ridiculous. But yeah, there are times where I get these impressions of, even driving down the road, sometimes, don't take this road, go this way. And it's like, okay,
yep,
and I'll just go this way. I don't question. There have been times when I've passed my own driveway. It's like, just make another loop. It's like, okay, it doesn't hurt anything. I'll just make another loop. I don't know why, but do
it. You obediently obey.
You think I need medication now?
No, not at all. Not at all. But, you know, I remember, because as humans, we want everything to be beautiful and perfect. We see stuff wrong and we wish it to be better. And we don't understand the importance, the contrast of this environment affords us, you know, gives us the ability to grow. And and experience and evolve our souls. Like, and as a young healer, that happened to me. Somebody brought their father to me who had dementia. And I knew I could look into his energy field and I could change it. If I saw imbalance, I could change it. So I diligently went in. He said that he's having trouble balancing, his inner ear is out of skew, and he's falling over a lot. And, you know, this man had brought his father, elderly father, to me to fix him, to heal him. And he was pretty sure that I was the gal that was going to do it. And so I went in to change the energy pattern, and his base chakra was all clogged up. And I got this resounding, no, don't do anything. Don't do it. And I'm like, what? And they said to me, or his higher self said to me, or his soul, whatever you want to call it, this is my process. This is what I'm choosing. This is the way I'm choosing to transition. Don't interfere. And I'm like, oh, wow. Right.
Yeah, they know better than me. I'm listening.
Angela says we are all sovereign souls.
I saw Vladdy, you had a question.
Yeah, Vladdy's got a
able
question.
to revisit the book from the Earth. You want me to talk about it more, or just revisit it? Have ever gone back and tried to look at it again, like astral traveling and going back and looking at it? I haven't tried going back and looking at it. I've just tried to. Actually, I haven't really tried to remember too much. I haven't done that. One of the things this was my strange happening video number 1 that I talked about. The very first thing I talked about in my videos was this. And one of the things I do say in there is I wanted to be toward the end of Earth's chapters, like this 3D world. I wanted to be near the very end of it, but not at the end. So close to a big change that's coming, but I didn't want to be at the change, whatever that change is. I wanted to be near it. This is going to sound weird again. Going down, I want to be picking a life. I want to be near because I want to see how much people have grown, how much people have learned. That's a weird thing to think, because I was just becoming a being of don't know about self and just becoming this new identity of self. But I had been interacting with these people this whole time. So it's like, I wonder how much they've learned from all this. So I wanted to be toward the end, but not at the end.
Okay, so when you're saying the end, so many people are talking about, you know, how we're shifting to a new consciousness. And some people say that in order to do that, disaster has to happen. And some people say the earth's splitting. And, you know, there's so many different timelines discussed.
I saw a lot of turmoil there, but when I say the end, that's the beginning of the blank pages for whatever change to get to this other state of being, that big change. I don't know, but there was a lot of turmoil right before that, a whole lot. Even things that we're seeing happening now, currently, is happening. Yep. But for that blank pages start, how that transition is going to happen, I'm not allowed to see. I couldn't see it. I wasn't allowed to see it. It was blank to me. But
you said you chose not to be there for the end of the turmoil and the beginning of the new era.
I gave myself 10 to 20 years before that.
So it's not going to happen in your lifetime, basically,
No.
as your
Not for me.
But
it could be totally wrong. I mean, this is just what I remember as a little kid. Things can change. So, but that's my memories from as a kid, and that's kind of ingrained in my being about that because of that memory. But that's just the way I see it. Now, as far as how it gets there, I know it gets there to this beautiful state of light being bodies and stuff.
Yeah,
it's amazing and perfect. But how to get there, I don't know. Maybe it is individual.
I guess that's what we're exploring, right? How to get there. That's what we're all doing. I see the same, Don. So many people talk about this heaven on earth, new earth, golden era, golden age. And it's not going to happen in my lifetime. I don't see it happening. So I guess that all of us that are here that are older, not you young ones, but the older ones, we elected to be here during that phase where we're leading up to it. But not physically here, unless we live for a couple of 100 years or whatever, not physically here for that, whatever it takes to sort of move over.
For me personally, because of that memory from before I was born, seeing it almost like a book, it's like, this is all set. A lot of people I hear are trying to raise the vibration of Earth so Earth can change. For me, it's the individual. Earth is set, and it's a great place to learn and grow. There's so many experiences here. I think it's necessary to be here for a lot of new souls that are brand new, identifying as self, it's a great place to come and start learning. So I think it's very valuable to be like this. But for me, it's about the individual learning to grow beyond what they are.
Oh, Don, is there any other questions in the chat? Have I missed any questions in the chat? You're on it, Don. I see that you're. Has anyone got any questions? Angela says you're laying the foundation and the groundwork. Yeah, we're all doing that. We're laying the foundation and the groundwork. Vladdy, what about you? Have you got any questions? Or Mohammed, have you got any questions? Nope.
Basically not, because most of them were answered already, and I just wanted to say thank you, because without you, just like Angela said, the foundation won't be there and we will not be able to come forth. So without you, we wouldn't be here.
It's all of us. I mean, when I see people interacting, it's just beautiful, you know, in positive ways like this. It's amazing. It's like all these colors. It's just amazing. All these vibrations, and it's just positive light going everywhere. It's just it's nice.
It's nice. Okay. You said that you wanted to chat about also what's been happening lately. So hold up that book that you were reading, PK, and go for it, Don.
This is the book was suggested to me by another gentleman named Gary. Gary read my book and related from after my walk-in experience, riding in a car, say, make a lightning bolt here and one would strike. See, make a lightning bolt there and one would strike. Actually doing things like this. And that's the cover of this book, because Jeffrey Mishlove did some graduation work with a gentleman named Ted Owens, who called himself the PK man for psychokinesis. And he did a lot, this Ted Owens character that he studied was like me in a lot of ways, with this lightning and electricity and weather manipulation and all this kind of stuff. The big difference was this Ted Owens character was arrogant, very arrogant with it, and it can go destructive like that. Even in one of my videos, when I'm talking about after reading this book, I have a video out from a couple of years ago talking about it would be so easy to become arrogant. And that's actually before I even heard the word Starseed or walk-in. I'm talking about all this weird stuff with me. It would be so easy to become arrogant because I'm still human. Easy to become arrogant and try to force your will onto other people, which, you know, I've done a couple of times, and it's you shouldn't, but I have, and I have to admit that, to be open and honest. The most recent was probably about 5 years ago. Someone in front of me driving in a cell phone, not paying attention, all over the road like they're drunk, and I'm like, get off the road, and pushing yourself out there. Then they pulled off right into a driveway right then. Then as I passed, they kind of looked around like, what just happened? Then they pulled in behind me. So it didn't last long. But anyway, that's the newest thing, is at least relating to that Ted Owens character, because when you see everything is alive, it's almost like part of you. The weather is part of you. The earth is part of you. You see other people like you, yourself and other people. It all becomes alive. And when I talked to his friends that responded, probably the most dramatic that ever happened was, again, this was probably about 6 years ago, sitting at a restaurant with another couple of friends, my wife and another couple sitting at a restaurant, large plate glass window. And the wind is getting really strong. So we start joking about a tornado coming. And then transformers start blowing, trees snapping in the parking lot, falling on cars, the doors blowing into the restaurant, people running and screaming, getting in the coolers under the table. And it is a tornado coming straight at the restaurant. And we're not moving. And it's like, and I'm feeling out there, it's like, no, this is fine. So just reaching out to reality with a bubble around, and I'm kind of like looking out with my mind, just creating a bubble around the restaurant and just saying to the tornado, no, stop. This is my reality. You're not changing it. Stop. And it stopped instantly right at the restaurant wall, took a 90-degree turn, and in a couple of seconds dissipated and disappeared. Things like that have happened all my life. That's why I thought I was crazy and alone, because how do you explain that? And then this guy in this book doing similar. And then there's a lot more examples I could include, but it's just like that. Even my wife saying, one time in Dallas, like some storm clouds up above, she goes, can you make a tornado form? I'd like to see a tornado. It's like, okay, talking to the clouds, and 5 tornadoes formed all around our house, like at 5 points. And we saw the news on the television. They started reporting on it, 5 tornadoes all around our house. one touchdown and took off some tiles off a Baptist school across the street from us, and then a couple of treetops on the other side, and then they dissipated. So trying to live in a crazy little world, how is this possible, and then have a normal life? So when I talk about splitting almost into two, it's like that, because this stuff happens and I couldn't explain it, and then trying to live a normal life in a corporate world.
So Don, do you think everyone can do that?
I do.
Yeah.
I really do. I think everybody is psychic. I really do. I think a lot of people just don't pay attention. Personally, I think cell phones are doing some interfering, because I practiced this when I was a kid with a planner, trying to do two things at once, two thoughts at once, trying to do a math formula and writing a sentence at the exact same time, trying to stretch my brain as much as possible. And I think it's a lot about trying to keep your brain active, your memory going, and using your brain a lot. And I think with a lot of the online calendars and stuff, people don't have to think anymore. It's like, let me see what I've got going today, instead of thinking about what you're doing today. You know, planning it out in your head, instead of just look at a phone and there it is. You don't have to think about it. So I worry about that a little bit, but I know everybody is psychic. It's just whether they're paying attention or not.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so interesting that you say that. You know, I'm thinking about all the AI that's happening now, where you don't even need to think about anything. It's like, you know, write me an essay on this, and then ChatGPT just does it. You know, like the AI is just taking away our ability to create. And like, create a painting, you can put it into DALL-E or Lexia or whatever, and you know, done. It's
I
like,
think it has a lot to do with your mind work, keeping your mind active and trying to really stretch your mind and keep it going, because there's a lot to do with consciousness, I think. Even way back when, with the guy in college, the telepathic friend, before I started denying it, we both joined the Freemasons, because I wanted to try to understand why I am like I am, with all this telepathy and empathic and learning about manifestations. Like, how is all this possible? Maybe they know something. It's been around so long. So I joined them for a while, until I engaged my career out of state and moved away. But their basic part of it is all memorizations. It's a whole lot of memorization you have to do, a lot. And it's really stretching your brain and your memory to do all of this. And I think they have a piece of it too for that. It's a lot of mind work, a lot of brain work.
yeah. Yeah, I felt like that when I was a naturopathic student. I hadn't studied for a long time. And how old was I? About 23, and I went back to college, and I remember learning was hard, like trying to remember things. And then I thought, a lot of the stuff that we learn in school, we don't learn because what we're learning is interesting or relevant to our lives. It's not relevant to our lives in any way, shape, or form, but it's teaching us to learn. It's like teaching us to learn, remember, focus, pay attention, create. Like, it's teaching us how to learn, how to use our brain, instead of just sitting in front of a television pressing the control.
That's part of it, the focus. Like in high school, trying to do those two things at once with the planner is actually seeing in your mind. The way I started trying to do a precognition was sitting here and envisioning myself 1 second in the future. What am I going to be doing 1 second in the future? Then 10 seconds, then 30 minutes, and then on out. And then seeing the day in my head. What is the day looking like in my head as I move forward in time? And then forward in the week. And at that point, I could start seeing almost like, it seems like in my head, looking at the week in my mind, there's going to be rain on this day. And then I start planning around it. Or, you know, for the month, and I start planning around my gardening and anything else I'm doing. I'm planning around my week, around what I'm seeing in my mind. And it seems to work out pretty well.
Yeah, you know, listening to your story, Don, I feel like as humans, we feel like we're at the mercy of so many elements, so much of life. We're at the mercy of it. We're at the mercy of the weather, you know, like you plan a, you know, picnic and then it might rain. But actually what you're saying is that we have dominion, like we have control. We can take back control. I mean, many people have spoken about this. Shirley MacLaine, I know I've mentioned her a couple of times today, but she talked about doing some filming, and a small group of them got together and they manifested the weather that they wanted. Was different to what the forecast was.
It really happens. I did that
a
couple of months ago right here. No rain, hadn't been raining for almost 2 months. And it's like, talking to the weather, I'd really like a little rain shower. It'd be really nice. A cloud appeared over our house, rained, and then disappeared. Didn't go anywhere else in the city. It really does happen. I think you really can, but probably the most dramatic of that was at a Texas Renaissance Festival. A friend of ours were leaving, beautiful red velvet dress, and it started to sprinkle rain. It was about to rain, and she got really upset. And I said this out loud. They were very big on environmentalists and nature, and really more open than most people that I knew at the time. So I said this out loud. I said, okay, stop. I'll try to do something. The rain will stop like right now, looking up at the clouds. And it did. The rain stopped instantly. I said, it'll stay stopped until we get to the car. Once you shut the car door, it will start up again. It'll rain all the way to the hotel an hour away. Once we get in the parking lot, it will stop again for you to get out of the car to the hotel awning. And then that's exactly what happened. And she came back out of her hotel room, was like, what happened? How did that just happen? How did you know that was going to happen? And I said, it's just weird. Sometimes I just talk to her like a friend and it happens. But they didn't run away. And that was really nice for people, not because I've had people run away on me a lot because of things like this, and they didn't run away. And that was just a breath of fresh air.
Okay, so her question was, how did you know that was going to happen? So she's like thinking, you've psychically predicted this, but what you're actually saying is, I didn't psychically predict it. I created it. Angela says here, this is mind-blowing. Mohammed says here, Angela says here, sounds like segment of intending Abraham talks about through Esther Hicks. Yeah, segment of intent, like I'm intending, like there's a segment of your life, like the next section, because, you know, like we wake up in the morning, that's one section. Put on the kettle, that's another section. We have breakfast, that's another, you know, there's a segments, there's all segments during our day. And what are we intending for this next segment? Cool. Yeah, segment of intending. Beautiful. Thanks, Angela. And yeah, I was thinking about this, you know, yesterday. So I was talking to the group about my day yesterday. So we're in the country and I have this little city car with these tiny little wheels. It's good for the city. It's not good for the country. And as I'm driving around this property, we were looking for people. They're all up in the house. We thought they'd be at the creek. Anyway, I said to the group in the car, this car is a city car. It's not really a country car. You know, it's got little wheels. And at that moment, we got bogged in the sand, literally immediately after I said it. And then somebody pulled us out, but there was a little bit of drama there as the wheels were spinning in the sand and we weren't going anywhere. And then I thought about it. So just before it happened, I talked about it. So did I predict it or create it? Talking to the mob about it. And they said, well, both actually, because you were thinking about how this car is not good for driving in the country, like driving on grass and sand. And you could have taken a different route, like gone around the other tree where it wasn't as sandy and not had that experience. But because you were thinking about it, that's the sort of timeline you landed on. And then you verbalized it. This car is not really, it's a city car. And then bang. It's so funny.
I see Blanny's talking about the chat. Were there times when you tried to create your future, but you couldn't put a time frame on it?
Good question.
There are times when it's like, especially after, this is kind of recent, I wanted to help a whole lot of people. And I'm trying to see it in my mind and do it. But again, it was that pushback. I kept getting this no, just no. And I even did a video on it. It was a Thursday night. I remember this clearly. And I keep pushing it and trying to push it. And it was almost like something saying to me, you already know the answer. You already know the answer kind of thing. And I'm just clueless. And then I'm on video, talking to video. I planned on putting this out and I try explaining it and this long explanation trying to. And then it's like, no, you're close, but you're off center, you know? And it's just like, no. So yeah, Vlad, there are times and I would like to create a particular future, but I get pushed back. Specifically, Gary, you know Gary at Naruba, the one who mentioned this book, he was having his house re-roofed. This year, a few months ago. And Tropical Storm Brett was coming his way, followed by Tropical Storm Cindy. And he called me up and asked if I could do something about it. I said, I'm not getting any pushback. I can feel it in the future, kind of like you're talking, Vladdy. I'm feeling it in the future. I'm not getting any pushback. I think it can be done. Then later, I'm starting to do this. And then I got a little bit of pushback with images like there's got to be one rain event so a fire doesn't spread out of control. And then Gary told me later that happened, that there was one big unforeseen rain event on a Friday that happened like that. And it's like, I would have liked it to be totally clear and everything, but there was something that came in, was like, there's got to be one rain event. So that, okay. And I put that on video before I ever talked to him. So it's out there. But then my stove exploded. So I'm trying to do this. My kitchen stove exploded, sparks shooting up to this. Oh yeah, I got a picture of my stove. So me and electricity don't get along sometimes. So it didn't get along that well that time.
So with natural disasters, Don, it's interesting that you say when you tune into it, you can feel whether you can shift reality or whether there's pushback. It's like, no, this has got to play out. What's the question I have here?
I felt some big natural disasters when they happen or when they're coming, because it's an emotional hit. It's like, I put this on video too, is along in the ATP that we discussed earlier, Con, I talked about building a wall as a protective device from things I see and feel. In the big events like a tsunami that affected a lot of people, you could feel it coming in and hitting, and it just breaks through all barriers. So I do feel stuff like that. Or if I'm close to a person, I'll feel it. If I'm really close to a person, I can feel their emotions from far away. Even when one of my friends, security guards, died at work, I actually did a video. It's like, I am feeling this. This event is happening. It's happening now. Somebody in a car wreck, trying to roll down the window with a manual window handle and everything. I describe it. And then I found out 2 weeks later, it was him in that car wreck in his car that happened to. The weird thing that happened in between those two events within that 2 weeks is I felt an astral visitor come to my front door. I'm at home alone and I feel somebody there, and it's just like, okay, this kind of stuff happens with me anyway. And it was not a negative feeling. It's like a friendly feeling. And I didn't know he died at this point. And it's like, I just wanted to come and take a tour of your house. Can you tour me around your house? I wanted to see where you live. He had never been in my house before. And it's like, okay. So I literally got up out of my chair, walked around the house and talked to this invisible thing beside me and toured through the house room to room, saying, this is my man cave, and this is the bedroom, and this is the kitchen. And literally, other people would think you're crazy talking to yourself. And I did this walking through the house. By the time I got to the front door, the only impression in my mind was thank you, and then gone. And then I found out later that he had died.
So, did you know him? Was he a neighbor or a friend? Did you know
he
him?
was a friend at work. He was a security guard at the place I worked.
He was. I missed that bit. Oh, he was.
He wanted to visit the house and wanted to go down to the farmhouse with me and all this. And COVID hit. We were shut down for 2 weeks. So I didn't see him for a couple of weeks. When we went back to work, found out what happened. But I actually recorded videos on this happening. It's like, I'm feeling this happen. It's happening now. So I've got it documented on video. Then I documented it that I saw this astral being come and I turned him to the house. So I documented on video. And then I documented that I found out that he died.
So
I'm just documenting some of this.
When you knew it, when you saw his astral form, you didn't recognize him as the security guard. Angela, do you want to come on camera and ask your question?
Sure.
Let me add you. There you go.
Okay. My question is, sometimes you hear people mention that weather is tied to collective emotion, like the ability to express emotion or the resistance to emotion. So do you have that sense in being able to work directly with the weather? Do you have the sense that it's tied in any way to collective emotion?
I think it absolutely is. The thing that, for me personally, the way it works is the more positive, friendly, is the more effective. Anger and stuff doesn't really do it. It's the more synced you can get in with it. It's more like a friend. It's part of you. And when you link your heart with it and you feel it, and it's a real emotional feeling and thought, and it's like part of you and your friend, and the more positive you put into it, the more it works with you. The negative thoughts can be pretty destructive. So what I learned with this kind of stuff going backwards is you can try to do some things, but you've got to be really careful because we're still human. I want a big rainstorm right now, and if there's not one in the area and it comes rushing in with 100-mile-an-hour winds, you can really hurt and damage some people. So you've got to be real careful. And still being human with negative thoughts. I've had some negative thoughts, and they've gone out and done some really negative things. So I'm still human.
Yeah. So here's where I was kind of going with that, like hurricanes, for example, like something like a hurricane coming up out of the blue. Do you think that's somehow directly linked to the people in that area and the emotional state of the people that already exist within that area? Not necessarily your ability to manipulate the weather, so to speak, but the occurrence of that thing kind of coming up. Is it a form of emotional release for the area? The collective bodies within that area?
I think there's got to be some intent with it for it to happen.
Yeah.
I think if there's no intent with it, they can be emotional, whatever, but without an intent, I don't think it's going to really occur without a really structured thought form kind of thing, personally.
Gotcha.
I've been angry and stuff, and the weather hasn't done anything, or I've been real joyful and nothing, super weird has happened without an intent there. So even with a collective group consciousness wanting to cause some damage or wanting to cause something positive, I think it's not belief, is I don't know what you would call it, but without a real understanding that this can happen, I don't think it'll happen without really treating it as a living being. Really, everything's alive. And if you don't really believe that, I don't think it's going to happen.
Okay.
I don't know.
You.
That's just personal. Thanks for asking, though. I appreciate the questions.
Sure. Thank you.
Great questions, Angela. I'd like to ask you a question, staying on this topic, the fires that we've just seen, the fires go through Maui and Canada, and also, and even here in 2019, 2020, when the Australian fires, I toured the areas where the fires hit worst. And what astounds me is that you could have 5 houses flattened and then a house next door not touched. Nothing's wrong with. What do you reckon's going on there, Don?
Maybe it's the people inside. Maybe it's something about them, and the fires just went around it. Similar things have happened, like being lucky, if you want to call it that, with me. It's almost like something that's mentioned in this book with psychokinesis. If it's focused in one area, it can have a lingering effect. So if somebody's really like this and you're in an area and it's focused there, you can leave and that effect stays. So even if they were gone, that protective effect may have stayed around those houses in the fire. I've had that at my house when our first house was broken into. A tree fell in the backyard as soon as someone broke in the house and scared them off. They didn't steal anything, just a DVD player. Ugh, horrible thing. And another point, when I was farming, somebody wanted to go and take some crops out of where I was farming and things like that, and a lightning bolt struck the field right there as they're speaking, and they decided not to do that. So I get what they say, they can be a lingering effect. So perhaps there was some type of protective lingering effect, protecting the houses.
Vladdy's got a question. You want to come on camera, Vlad? Want me to spotlight you?
Yeah, sure. I just want to ask regarding the question with whether if it is tied to some of the wishes of the people for change, like they're calling for a big change, and maybe then that's the time when the weather starts to acting up.
I don't know. People wanting change, like from a drought, wanting rain or wanting rain for something. I think wanting and wishing is different than really an intention. That's just my personal. I've wished for things before. Wish I win the lottery. That's not going to happen. I think that would be destructive for me personally. So in my subconscious, I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's stuck there. But as far as people wishing, I think there's a difference between just wishing for something and then really reaching out to reality, to existence, to this consciousness that is everywhere, reaching out and touching it and intending for something to happen. I think there's a difference. I don't know if that answered the question.
Yeah, when you talk about affecting reality and like you reaching into the matrix and tweaking things, there's not a moment of doubt that you can't do that when you do that, right? There's not a moment of doubt. There is a like, you know, communication whether you should or shouldn't. So you get the like, okay, I can do this, like it's clear, or no, I'm getting not, but there's not a moment of doubt that you can't do it. Like, you know, you can do it. That's the difference between wishing and creating.
Yeah, and but there's also another piece to it is wanting it, not wanting it, but trying to create and stuff, but leaving it also up to the rest of the consciousness, not trying to force it. I think if you try to force it, it might work. It's worked for me before, but you don't know the unintended consequences of what you're trying to do. It could have unintended consequences. Blowing out transformers. What if there's someone needing that electricity for oxygen or something? You may not know about that. So there can be unintended consequences. So a lot of times when I put this intent and want and try to make something happen, I also leave room for, if it doesn't happen, it's okay. I am still okay. I will learn from whatever happens, but it would be nice and try to make this happen. But if it doesn't, I understand there may be another reason.
Yeah, non-resistance. You're talking about non-resistance, Don. That's how we should all operate. Because when we say we want stuff, we're like, please, I want this. It's got to happen. Otherwise, my life won't be okay if this doesn't happen. There's no room for chat. You're like, there's no wiggle room there. It's kind of like, you've got to make this happen. And that non-resistance says, it'd be nice, but if it doesn't, that's cool too. Like, usually you're creating kind of collectively more than personally. Mind you did that with your career. Shirley, you want to come on camera and say what you've written here? You want to come on camera, honey? I'll pop you on with the crowd.
Yeah,
Spotlight you. You're muted. Let me unmute you. I have the power.
Hello. Am I unmuted?
You're unmuted.
Yeah, I'm loving listening to you share your stories, Don. Thank you so much. Yeah, I have a friend up in Bancroft, Ontario, and at this time they were in Schomberg, so about an hour away from me. And this tornado, she said, no warning. She just saw it heading straight down they're in the country, so straight down the laneway, right to them. Like barns were flying, and she went downstairs to warn people when it hit. And she said it was like a freight train. But by the time she got downstairs, the tornado, which was coming straight for them, veered off to the right and then went right around them and then headed straight up to Barrie and destroyed, like one of the big cities here, destroyed the whole Barrie Raceway and everything on its path. But it didn't hurt their restaurant. And so people were meeting there all shell-shocked, and we were able to, have coffee on and soup, and people could just come and talk and fill up their water jugs, and just, it was divine. Like it just was protected.
Nice.
I'm just interested what Vladdy said, something about, was it like a cleansing, or I'm not sure that's the word he used, but did it happen because of change being needed? I think that's what it was. So yeah, maybe there was need for lots of sweeping away there.
It's an amazing world.
Oh, it's amazing. And then a year to the day, I was with that same best friend, and we were in the Barrie Raceway watching a concert, which was destroyed the year before by a tornado. And my friend she just turned white. And I said, what's the matter? She said, behind you, the sky, it's green. She said, I cannot survive this again. I cannot live through this again. And we had a storm, but it wasn't a tornado, but we had green skies. So I wonder if she influenced it and just said, maybe. Because there was no way for us to get out. The concert was set up so there was only one exit for everybody to funnel through. And it was I don't remember it as being scary. It was just an adventure, but my friend was terrified. So I wonder if it was influenced too.
I think reality is a little flexible.
Yeah.
I think it's a little flexible.
Maybe we all want we don't all, but some of us want the weather to be like an exciting ride at the carnival, like a big what are those things called? The roller
was me,
coaster.
Yogi.
Roller
And so we
coaster.
want it exciting. We want the big adventure. We're here for the big adventure, right? I like what you said about tuning in and saying, if it's okay to make this happen, but we never know what else could be affected.
Mhm.
Yeah, maybe somebody didn't need rain that day, or
You never know. This is always nice. I think, is it Andina? How do you say
Angela.
your
Angela.
Angela. You said something about being in collaborative
Oh, no,
work
you've
with.
changed your name.
I like
Sorry.
that. I really like that. Collaborating.
Yeah, sorry, say that again. I just noticed that Angela changed her name to. How do you say it, Angela? I'm going to bring you up.
It's pronounced Andona. It's my spiritual name. Yeah.
Oh,
Andona. Oh,
and
nice.
Donna Sananda Kumara. I've just
Yes.
noticed that. Sorry, Angela.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
like-
beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, like say what you said here again, just because I think I was talking over Don.
like a
Oh, I just
collaboration.
said I just said he wasn't imposing his will. He's not ever working to impose his will, working with nature. He's collaborating with nature as it aligns with the highest good of all. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think that's what you do with your friends is you don't try to, hurt your friends or anything. You just, it's nice to be around them and to talk with them and work with them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I want to go back to a point that you were making about using positive, negative, not negative energy to affect change, to change it up within the matrix system. When we look at movies and Hollywood, TV shows and stuff, all these magic shows and witches, and they always tell us that our anger creates the energy. Have you ever watched any shows where these young witches are trying to find their energy to manifest, to create spells, and not in the Harry Potter so much, but I've watched many others. And then when something happens and they get angry, it's that anger energy that they create. And it's the opposite is true. They're actually putting out the wrong message. They're putting out, it is the opposite is true. It's like when you find the love, when you find the unity, when you find the balance, that's where your power lies. It's not in your anger and your frustration. Yeah, it's something that I always get frustrated with when I see these shows. It might be an intentional thing to show us about what disempowers us rather than empowers us.
Yeah, they don't make money about positive things usually. Like the news. Positive things don't rate well.
Yeah, sensationalism.
I learned that
That-
working at the TV station. They want those clicks and they want those ratings, and positive things don't usually get the ratings.
Vladdy says he's Don and Karen, you're answering many of the questions of mine without even me asking them. Thanks a lot. Oh, that's so cute. Well, I might end the live here and we'll just have a bit of a chat between us and in the group. But Don, is there anything that you want to say while we're still recording and still public? Anything you want to say to people that were watching the live or watching the recording?
Sure, we've talked about a lot of weird things, manifestations and stuff like that. Everyone is psychic. I think you'll realize it more once you start paying attention to it. Everyone is. And you can do this in everyday ways. But everyone is. Just pay attention.
Beautiful. Pay attention. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Don. And just remind people where they can find more of your stuff and your book.
Oh, the book, I try to give them away when I can, but it is on Amazon, A Starseed Lost in the Dark. It does have a lot of experiences, haunted houses, and it's in 5 sections, like I sent to you, Karen, childhood, high school, college, career, and retirement. And I also have my videos on YouTube and on Rumble. You can just search my name, Don Hudnall. Then I have a lot of extras on BitChute. So on bitchute.com/Don Hudnall. I also have my gardening stuff out there, gardening and country boy, and there's a lot of videos out there besides my strange happenings. But on YouTube, Don Hudnall is just the strange happening stuff.
Cool. And just before we go, I'm going to add you, Angela. Do you want to tell people that are listening to the live and the recording what's going on with you, with your group and stuff like that?
So I am Andona Sananda Kumara. That is my spiritual name. My name is Angela Anderson, and I have a group called the Portal of Perspective. And this is a monthly book club that we just recently started. And right now we're discussing The Team series by Frances Ray Key. It's about her deceased mother who channeled these books through her when she passed. So they're a collection of 4 books, and we're discussing those. And for our October discussion, Frances will join us live on the broadcast. And so if you have opportunity, you can join us on Facebook and YouTube. The discussion will be October 27th at 5:55 p.m. That's US Eastern time. And the YouTube channel is youtube.com/@Andona Sananda Kumara is the YouTube channel. So feel free to join us. Everyone's welcome to join us. Whether you've read the books or not, it will be an inspirational conversation.
5:55. I love that. So 5:55.
Yeah.
5:55 Eastern is 7:55 a.m. down under, down in Sydney. So that's doable. I can do that. I'm coming.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for letting me share that announcement.
Oh, Don, I just love you. Thank you so much. Well, I love everybody. I love Angela. I love you all. And Vladdy sending love. I'm going to stop the live. Big love to all of you. And thank you so much for sharing your amazing experiences. I want to hear more. I want to get you on again.